I'm going to introduce our last presenter and co-organizer of the conference and the brains behind the operation, Hope Bohanec. Hope has been active in animal protection and environmental activism for 30 years and published the first book on the issue of the humane hoax called The Ultimate Betrayal. She's the executive director of Compassionate Living and the host of the Hope for the Animals podcast. She co-founded the Humane Hoax Project, and she has edited an anthology on the humane hoax that will be coming out next year, published by Lantern Publishing and Media. Hope, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you so much. And thanks to everyone for being here. It's just been an amazing day. Like I was saying earlier, we've had about 150, 160 average people here all day, and that just, it warms my heart. It's just amazing that there's that many people that are interested in this issue and that care and that want a compassionate world. So thank you for being here. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen because I have slides. So let me actually, I'm not sure if that works. This is working and everybody can see my screen. If not, somebody tell me. All right. So digging deeper and taking action. So I want to dig a little deeper. It's been an amazing day. We've covered so much. I mean, intellectual, emotional, it's incredible. Definitely, if you didn't catch all of the presentations, there's going to be a video for every single presentation available on Compassionate Living's YouTube page. So check that out. And so I have been vegan myself for 32 years. And back when I first went vegan, you know, the only option when you became aware of what was happening and you wanted to stop your participation in the suffering of animals in the food system, you reduced your impact and you went vegan. I mean, that was the only option. Well, that has changed. And because of the excellent work of a very small but dedicated group of activists in the last 30 or so years, 40 years, we have exposed the horrors. We have done all that we can to let people know what is truly going on. And so the industry is responding. They're responding. They're changing their language. They're changing their marketing. They're changing their labels. What isn't changing isn't changing very much is what's actually happening on the farm and to the animals. And so we're kind of going to get into that, and you've heard a lot about that today already. But I believe really that because of this evolution, that now we have to, as animal people, as animal advocates, as caring people, we have to now change our language and our story and our narrative as well, because this is really our kind of our 21st century activism challenge, this new rhetoric around humane labeling and humane raising of animals, greenwashing as well. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But first, I just want to talk about the labels and get a little bit deeper in on some of these labels and some thoughts that I have. So first of all, just to be aware that there is so little regulation on these labels going on. Depending on the situation, the labels get awarded by the USDA or the FDA, or sometimes like a third-party auditing system that's sometimes run by an animal welfare organization, sometimes by a for-profit company. And the standards just vary widely. What is expected very widely. But what is general is that usually it's just someone filling out a form, the farmer, the manufacturer filling out a form, sending it in, and no one is denied the label. On-site inspection, actual rigorous looking at the farm and what they're doing, that happens very little. Okay, so just to be aware of that. And also there's a lot of confusion. So there's, certified humane, not to be confused with American certified humane, which is a completely different label, so it's very confusing. The standards will vary by species. Oftentimes for access to the outside, cows are the only animal that are supposed to have or are under the label have access to the outside. Chickens, pigs, Turkeys often don't with these labels, and everybody kind of believes that they're all pasture raised and all getting outside access, when generally it's mostly only cows. And that's simply because that's inherent in the industry. Dairy cows are hard to hide in a barn. They have to be moved around to the milking parlor, moved to different areas. So they're often outside anyway. So, you know, again, very little changes under these labels. And even with the highest welfare labels, like Whole Foods GAP labels, the GAP, it stands for Global Animal Partnership, and it's supposed to be, you know, the best of the best. It's got these 5 levels of, you know, better, better, better. And even with those GAP labels, undercover investigators are exposing the truth on these farms. And so all these undercover investigations that we've been seeing for the last, you know, several decades, it's not only on conventional farms. We're now seeing humanely labeled farms being investigated, and we are seeing the same horrors. One investigation, a farm that supplied GAP labeled turkey meat to Whole Foods, they found, they documented filthy conditions, injured and sick turkeys. Another one that was the same GAP turkey meat that was for Whole Foods. The investigators found, again, sick and injured turkeys, as well as turkeys being thrown and kicked and stomped on, and some workers simulating sexual acts with the birds. I mean, just, you know, the worst of the worst, where the public sees the best of these labels, and they think that it's the best of the best. So very frustrating. There's also One Health certified program. Now, I don't see this one in my area. I'm in Northern California, and I don't really see this one around, and I'm looking for these labels. But apparently it is a large welfare label that is, it was created by the largest poultry producer in the US, Montier Farms, but they have come under scrutiny by Consumer Reports, by the ASPCA, for saying that their welfare claims under this label, the One Health certified program, is misleading, and that the stores have been pulling this label off their shelves because of the allegations of humane washing. So this goes deep, and consumers, they believe that these certifications are the same standards, and that there's significant changes for these animals, and that's just not the case. And it's hard to distinguish between them. And it's not only small producers either. The big guys are using these deceptive labels too, just as much. Tyson, Ben & Jerry's, Butterball, they're using these kinds of humane labelings as well. So I want to hone in on cage-free, and I know Emily talked about cage-free as well, but it's just a really kind of very important one to focus on right now, I think, because of the popularity and the just extent that it is growing. And actually, cage-free was only 4% in 2010 of the market, 4% of the market. In 2020, it was 28% of the market, and it is estimated to be 70% of the market in the next 4 years. So it's growing exponentially, and the reason for this is, really, we've done our job. Animal activists exposed the horrors of the egg-laying hens that were languishing in the battery cages. It was one of the worst, egregious, most awful thing that investigators saw when they went in to egg farms. These birds crammed into these tiny cages, tiny areas where they couldn't even, it would be like living your whole life in a crowded elevator. It's just miserable. So the clever marketers, they, in the egg industry, they responded by changing the story, changing the label, changing consumers' conceptions of what's going on. So instead of just foregoing eggs, not eating eggs, now consumers have a choice, right? A seemingly humane alternative, but the reality for the birds is stark. And I took a screenshot of this headline just to show the popularity. Cage-free egg demand is skyrocketing. Big win for animal welfare. This is from an NPR affiliate radio. But so what does it mean though? When there is a cage-free operation? Well, this is what it could mean. This is something that is being that farmers are transitioning to, and this is enriched caging, where it's just they're a little bit bigger. And this is what when Emily was talking about the eggs or the chickens just getting one playing card more space, right? This is kind of what she was talking about, that this is, it's just slightly better. But all the other horrors that they face are still there. The horrors in the hatcheries, the horrors at slaughter. And does this look like any kind of natural or enjoyable situation for a chicken? No, absolutely not. It's still miserable. This is also what can be considered cage-free. And like someone said in the chat earlier, it's just one big cage, right? It's still thousands of birds crammed in. They're just on top of each other, miserable, no sun, no earth, no air, the ammonia burning their throat and their sensitive bodies. It's just, still miserable and horrible. And the reason that I say free range as well as this could be considered a free range farm, all a farmer would have to do is open a little door to maybe a 5 foot by 5 foot mud yard or patio that maybe 20 or 50 of the birds only could fit in, and call that free range because now they have access to the outside. And that can be open for just 5 minutes a day. There's no regulation on how long they can, they have to be outside. So it means so little. But what's happened is that and I do want to emphasize that, of course, getting them out of the cages is good. I mean, that's, okay, it's something. Any modicum of improvement from their miserable lives is a good thing. But what happens is that now all of the welfare issues are getting funneled through this one thing, the size of their confinement, these 2 words, cage-free. And it pacifies the consumer into thinking that everything's okay now. Everything's so much better. It funnels their existence down to these 2 words when there's so much more suffering that they face, in their existence before this moment, after this moment, during this, their horrible confinement. It's very misleading to think that they're living, a cruelty-free life. Cage-free does not mean cruelty-free. There is cruelty beyond the cage. All right, so we'll move on from that. So I want to explore some new labels that we're seeing. Responsibly raised is a new one that I've been seeing a lot lately. This one we see with Whole Foods and Chipotle. Chipotle has been using this a lot. This is a Chipotle ad that I pulled here, responsibly raised and unconditionally loved. So responsibly raised. So it's, it's sufficiently vague that it could really mean anything. It could be ethical. It could be environmental, right? So, they can make you believe whatever they want you to believe with this wonderfully alliterated responsibly raised. And then also this unconditionally loved. I really, first of all, what do we see here on the picture? What do we see? It's a burrito, right? Okay, so is this burrito unconditionally loved? No, it's not what they're talking about. They're talking about the cut up pieces of flesh inside this burrito, right? How can a being that was killed and cut up have been unconditionally loved? It's such cognitive dissonance. It's just crazy. It reminds, it is reflective of John Sanbanmatsu's upcoming chapter in the Humane Hoax anthology that I'm editing. He is kind of unpacking the femivore. The femivore meaning these women that are kind of going back to the land to farm, but to farm animals. And there's a lot of language in his article that demonstrates from their memoirs that this language around caregiving and mothering and loving the animals. And it's just such, I don't know, really, really disturbing, right? That you would put that kind of language on someone that, you're going to be killing. I mean, how can someone be unconditionally loved like a child? I mean, that's the kind of language we use around children, and then send them to the slaughterhouse. It's just unbelievable. Okay. So talking about greenwashing a bit, getting into greenwashing, and I know we didn't talk enough, I don't think, about the environmental impact. I'm glad that Sina got into it a lot in her presentation, and I was actually considering and wanting to do an entire conference on greenwashing. And if people are interested in that, let me know, and I would love to find the time to do that. But this is a new label that we're seeing with greenwashing, and that's low carbon beef. Well, so I looked into this, and the USDA has approved a program that will open the path for beef producers to market their meat as low carbon. And all the producers have to do is prove that their cattle were raised in a way that emits 10% less greenhouse gases than the industry standard. 10% less, that's all. And then they can be considered low carbon beef. Now, I did not look into whether there's any on-site inspection of the farm or anything like that. I assume it's another scheme where they're just filling out a form and telling them, you know, what they want to hear. There may be some on-site inspection, I don't know, but what I'd really love to talk about is this 10%. So 10% less, okay. Well, that's something, sure, if it's viable, which often it's not in these situations, or maybe it's only for a certain amount of time, because carbon can only be sequestered in the earth for so long. I don't want to get into all those kind of minutiae and details, but you know, this is where we bring up this compared to what, right? Dr. Tushar Mehta at our chicken webinar, Humane Hoax Chicken Webinar, he said this so well. He's like, compared to what? You know, if we're talking about something, we need to be show all the comparisons, all the options, right? When you have conventional beef, and then you say, okay, well, there's 10% less emissions with low carbon beef, and that's the only comparison, it's like, well, okay, so we have to eat beef, that's our only choice. No, that's not our only choice. Let's compare to plant farming, right? How about comparing to plant farming? Wow, then we're going to see much higher percentages coming down in our greenhouse gas impact with farming. And then how about rewilding the land? All right, now we're really talking about bringing down those numbers to maybe, you know, 70, 80, 90% less impact than conventional farming of beef. So, you know, we have a crisis on our hands. And just to say 10% less, it's so frustrating to me, because, you know, how about just not eating beef? Let's just not eat beef. We have to make bold and immediate change if we're going to stop this climate crisis. So anyway, all right. Another example, going back to the ethical issues, that was my greenwashing rant. I'll go back to the ethical issues now. So there was actually, Vital Farms. All right, this is where we're going to go. This is ethical. It's correct. I just thought we were going somewhere else. So Vital Farms. All right. So we have this is. I just kind of want to really analyze this one particular brand, Vital Farms. I'm seeing them everywhere. They are at the co-op. They are all around our area. We see Vital Farms, and actually, I just heard from someone that he has this brand in New York as well. Like, they have it at the stores in New York. So across the country, they are everywhere. And boy, they have everything going on here with humane washing. They've got green grass and fresh air and sunshine and under the open skies. Oh, these chickens must be in paradise, right? This carton just drives me crazy. So I pulled some things from their website to kind of analyze, right? All right, so one thing that they say on their website is, how can an egg be ethical? Think not of the egg, but the process by which it came to be. The process by which it came to be. So I think this is kind of like a little dig to vegans, right? It's saying the egg's not the problem. The egg isn't, that's not what the problem is. The problem is the process, and we can make the process humane. We can make the process good. So don't think about the egg. The egg's not the problem. It's the process. And so a little dig to vegans there. I thought that was interesting. And then this, where honest food is raised. Okay, well, once again, we've got this like with the unconditionally loved, it's not the food that's being raised, right? It's animals that are being raised. It just, you disappear the animal with this, where honest food is raised. Oh, so frustrating. And then finally, they have and admit on their website that they have over 250 farms that are in their, Vital Farms family and family of family farms. 250. So do you think that there is really the kind of oversight that would need to be able to make sure that all 250 farms have fresh air and sunshine and green grass and under the open skies and all of that for all their chickens? There's just no way. There's no way they'd be able to truly inspect and keep up with, continuous surveillance of all these farms. It's just, there's just no way. Once again, it's the farmer's word. It's whatever they want to say. They fill out the form, send it in, So very, very frustrating with Vital Farms. And yeah, and the final thing I'll say too that I think is interesting is that we have this, and actually, I'll say this with the next one because it kind of applies to this next one as well, and that is around pasture-raised farming of pigs. So there was a study that was released in 2020. And it was called the Animal Welfare and Production Challenges Associated with Pastured Pig Systems. This study, it was actually a meta-analysis, which means that they look at numerous studies and come to conclusions based on those studies. They looked at organic farms and pasture-raised farms where the pigs had access to outside in both with from 2000 to 2020. So 20 years of studies and articles and all kinds of looking at these organic and free-range pork systems and operations. And the study just really, it just underscores the myriad of problems with free-ranging animals, putting animals out onto pasture. Now we have this romanticized notion, that's what I was going to say about the Vital Farms and the chickens. We have this romanticized notion that if we could just get all the animals out of the barns, out of the confinement barns and onto these green pastures, that'll solve all the problems. Everything's fine then. That's all that needs to happen, right? No, that's not the case. And the reason for this is numerous. These are not wild animals. Pigs, chickens, cows, they are domesticated animals that need our care to survive. We have manipulated them to that point. They are not wild animals. And the welfare issues that happen for free-ranging and pasture-raised animals is extensive. And this is for the pigs. They found that there was exposure to extreme temperatures in the summer. They could get heat stress from not being able to adequately get shade. The lighter colored skin animals would get painful sunburned and blistering. And then in the winter, there was extreme cold, frostbite, piglets with hypothermia, pneumonia. They're more vulnerable to predators, of course, being out there. There's more contact with wildlife. So there's issues with pathogens, parasites, and pastured pigs and the pork that was produced has a much higher risk of having salmonella and campylobacter, as well as a host of other words that I'm not going to attempt to pronounce and that you don't want in your food. And then there's also this complexity or more difficulty with identifying animals that are sick or injured because they're out on pasture. So there's so much to this that is beyond just the label. Once again, everything, the welfare issues get funneled through this one label, free range or pasture raised, these two words that sums up this, their whole lives, when their whole lives is so much more complex and the suffering is so much more complex. And this study didn't even cover transport and slaughter, which is yet another horror of their lives that all these animals will face. So, okay, and then no matter the confinement, these animals are confined in their own bodies, right? They are, you know, even if the confinement may be a bit bigger, they have been so genetically manipulated, so selectively bred over the years to give more milk, more eggs, more meat, their muscles getting so huge that they can barely stand after just a few weeks of life. That, you know, it's hard to be in their bodies, and they're confined in their bodies. So, and you know, and dairy and egg is basically reproductive servitude, you know, and it creates these bodies that are uncomfortable to painful to be in. Yeah. So there's another interesting aspect to the humane hoax that's around other species beyond the general species that we see. There's kind of the big four. There's cows, pigs, chickens, and turkeys that are kind of the main animals that we see as food, people see as food. But when there's another species of animals, suddenly, for some reason, it's more humane, right? Goat dairy and sheep cheese and buffalo meat, you know, suddenly, because it's a different species, we see it as something different. But unfortunately, the reality is that it is the same. We see the same cruelties in goat dairy that we see in cow dairy. And I'll give you an example with the story from this picture. So who you're seeing here on the left is Deborah Bloom. She is from Goatlandia Sanctuary. She founded Goatlandia Farm Sanctuary in Northern California. And this little darling on the right is Tucker. And the story of Tucker, how Tucker came to be at Goatlandia. There was a small-scale dairy farm, a dairy operation in Northern California. And actually, that's the reason that Deb has started a goat sanctuary, is because there's goat dairy has become so popular in the area. And so there was a goat on this farm, on a goat dairy, that was having a difficult birth. So the owners decided to take her to UC Davis veterinary clinic to assist her birth. And a veterinarian helped give birth to two healthy babies. She had twins, a boy and a girl. And the owner said, "Oh, well, we'll take the baby girl, but you can euthanize the boy. We don't need him. We don't want him." And this veterinarian was, you know, after just spending hours birthing this, you know, perfectly healthy baby boy into the world, was kind of like, okay, but she couldn't do it. She couldn't kill him. So she started making some calls, and she found Deb from Goatlandia, and Deb and a crew took the drive out to UC Davis Medical to pick up this newborn baby, Tucker. And so Tucker got to be rescued and live his life out in peace and at this sanctuary in Goatlandia. But that's not the case for so many baby males in the goat dairy industry. They are considered a waste product, just as the same as baby males in the cow industry, and they are slaughtered. And it's getting worse and worse as the industries grow. And, you know, I'll read this one quote from a former small-scale goat farmer. She said, "To watch a sentient being gasp for air and look into his eyes filled with fear and see the blood coming from his neck, it's the most heart-wrenching, awful thing." Okay, so I want to talk a bit about farmers. And you know, so I want to talk about animal farmers and ranchers. I have this, actually, I have so many thoughts going on this, and I'm gonna write an article on it because I just have so much, and I'm gonna try to summarize it here. But this kind of goes along with this foodie and locavore culture that we have of know your farmer, right? Get to know your farmer. We see this meme in the farmers markets and in the locavore ethos, right? And I want to start by saying that we're not against farmers. Okay, we don't hate farmers. We don't think farmers are evil. We are against the inherent animal abuse in animal farming. Okay, vegans, we love farmers. We love plant farmers. We eat a lot of plants, right? Vegans, we eat a lot of plants. We need farmers. We need plant farmers. So all we want is for farmers to transition from animal farming to plant farming. It's not that we don't want farmers or need farmers. We just don't want the animal abuse and animal farming. That's all. So just to clarify that. But there's this interesting kind of odd ethos, right, around know your farmer. And I'm not sure how this all goes, but I've been thinking deeply about it. And, I think it's really interesting because we don't have the same thing with whoever made our couch or our blender or our car, right? We don't have the same thing. So why do we need to know who grew our food or who raised the animal that was killed for our food? I think there's a lot going on here. Okay. I think that some of it has to do with the negative publicity of the industry that is, the industry has rightly gotten from the last few decades, and they're trying to put kind of a positive face on the problem. They want to build trust, I think, is one reason for this ethos of get to know your farmer. But there's other problematic and polluting industries like car manufacturing, right, that have the same thing, but there isn't a meme going around like get to know your car manufacturer, right? Go and meet your car manufacturer. So why the farmers? So I think what's going on is that there's a deeper level to this. Okay, we know that we are dealing with the breeding and trading and commodification and manipulation and ultimately the killing of an emotional sentient being, right? So on some level, we know there's something wrong with this, and we have this need to make sure that everything's okay, I think. So to reassure ourselves that, reassure ourselves that it's okay to support this, inherent problematic system, we want to make sure there's someone out there that's doing it right, that's doing it okay, that's doing it better. And we have this need to know that. But how can you ever humanely, rightly kill, innocent animals? And again, I want to say that, I don't think, and I think that most vegans do not think that our farmers are evil, think that, we realize that they are caught in this system of thinking that it is natural and normal to eat meat, as most of the planet feels still. And that's why we're here today, is to try and raise that awareness. So they're caught in that same mindset. But the humane hoax and humane labeling, I think really, it helps us to sympathize with farmers even more, thinking about the small farmer who's trying to do it better, right? So we have to be very careful of this, I think, and expose this. But, and the other part of this is that farmers are not experts on animal welfare. Right? Farmers they shouldn't be seen as experts on animal welfare and the one making decisions about what's going to be better for the animals. Farmers are experts in maximizing profit on animals' bodies, right? That's what they're expert in, not animal welfare. So how can we leave it up to them to think what's best for the animals, know what's best for the animals? It shouldn't be that way. And even on small family farms, animal products with humane labeling, even if you meet the owner or the rancher at the farmer's market, there's still going to be that standard agricultural cruelty throughout all farming. There's painful body mutilations, separation of families, slaughter at a very young age. These things don't change. And from my book, I actually interviewed numerous former animal workers, animal agricultural workers that experienced even abuse beyond those standard agricultural practices on small farms, on family farms, on farms with just a host of feel-good labels. They still, saw animals being punched and prodded and kicked and poked and yelled at. So, anyway, I have so much to say about this. I'm gonna end it there because I know time is ticking. But I'm definitely gonna write an article about this because I just have a lot to say about this interesting stuff. But again, I'll just say that all we're asking for, again, we love farmers. We need farmers. We eat a lot of plants. So what we want is to see them transition from animal farming to plant farming. And there's numerous programs out there now. There's organizations, maybe some people can put them in the chat, maybe that's already happened, of organizations that are giving resources and money and support to farmers to make these transitions. So, all right, that's all I'll say about farmers. I'm going to move on to another point that I want to make. And that is that humane slaughter is an oxymoron. How can there be humane slaughter? So we have ethical laws that govern our conduct, right, towards one another, both socially and in the legal system. And we believe, we've agreed as a society, as a global society, we have agreed that hurting animals is bad, but killing is worse, right? And not only with humans, but also with companion animals. When you mistreat a dog, that could be a misdemeanor charge. If you kill that dog, it may be a felony charge. It's seen as worse in many counties, states, and areas, right? But farmed animals are somehow excluded. They're exempt from this basic moral understanding, okay? And there's agricultural exemptions that support this in the law that make them exempt from a lot of every animal cruelty law on the county level and the state level. And in fact, it's kind of flipped on its head, right? Where the gradation of transgressions is that you shouldn't hurt someone, but killing them is worse. You shouldn't hurt a cat, but killing the cat would be worse. But now with humane labeling, we've flipped that on its head in that, well, okay, you shouldn't hurt an animal. Yeah, it shouldn't hurt an animal. That's really bad. But killing them's okay. Right, well, we've really got some messed up logic going on there, right? So let me pose a question. Would you rather be hit with a baseball bat or killed? Horrible thing to think about, I know. But most reasonable people would choose to be hit with a baseball bat, even if it was going to be very painful, even if it would be even debilitating, right? Lifelong debilitation, we would still choose to live. We would choose life, right? Okay, life is precious. So let me ask another question. Would it be acceptable for a rancher or a farmer to hit a pig with a baseball bat? No, of course not. Hit a pig with a baseball bat? No. And you know what? Everyone would agree. Even meat eaters, most reasonable, I'm talking reasonable people, most reasonable meat eaters would agree. No, you can't hit a pig with a baseball bat. Well, then why is it acceptable to commit the much greater violation, the thing that we have agreed as a global society is a greater violation, and kill the pig? It makes no sense. It makes no sense. And guess what? Animals want to live. It is their first and most basic rule of survival: live. They want to live another day. They want another day of life, of joy, of sorrow, of living in the grass. They have the same emotional capacity of wanting another day of life that we do. So, killing a healthy animal for no reason is morally and logically inconsistent. It's wrong. All right, so I'm going to move on to kind of wrapping up this section around the humane washing, and then I do want to do a little bit on taking action and how we can take action on this issue. But I'm going to wrap this up quick by just kind of a general conclusion, which is that there are inherent cruelties in all animal farming that just can't be avoided and aren't diminished with a feel-good label. Okay, to produce a profitable product, the well-being of the animal will have to be compromised in some fundamental ways, no matter how humane an operation even wants to be. There are inherent cruelties, standard agricultural practices that are universal to making a product: body mutilations, babies taken away from their mothers, slaughter at a very young age. Again, these things don't change. So it's interesting to note, so there was a survey by the Sentience Institute, and they found that 58% of people that they surveyed think that farmed animals are treated well, and that 75% of people believe that the products that they're purchasing come from animals that are treated humanely, right? So this 75%, and it wasn't even people that buy humane labels, just any animal product, they believed that the products they were purchasing, the animals treated humanely. Now, I believe very much that the presence of all these alternative labels, all these humane labels in the market is exacerbating this effect of appeasing consumers into this false sense that there's an industry-wide shift to humane labeling or to humane treatment, right? That there's this industry-wide trend towards conditions, better conditions for farmed animals. And that is not the case at all. In fact, if you look across the board, things are getting worse for animals for the most part. So it's really, really frustrating when we see these labels. And I believe that it is, you know, it is lulling people into thinking there's an industry-wide shift towards better conditions when there really isn't. The Sentience Institute proposed in this study, or in this article that they wrote about the study, they said, quote, this suggests a psychological refuge effect where people justify their animal product consumption by incorrectly assuming they're eating ethically produced food. So the only truly humane choice is vegan. And I will say one more thing about this, even though I am incredibly infuriated with these humane labels and all of this, all of the humane hoax, I am hopeful too. I have to be, it's my name, but I am. I do believe that this is kind of like a stage that we have to go through to get to our ultimate goal of seeing these animals as sentient beings. I mean, truly what we're doing with these humane labels is we are admitting that animals suffer. We are admitting that animals have emotional lives, that they suffer in these industries, that we should give them better lives, right? So all of that is kind of inherent in this labeling. So if we just are able to expose this humane hoax, the next step, the next stage will be truly understanding that there is no humane way to confine and kill a sentient being. So, all right. So I want to move on to taking action. How can we do something about this? What can we do? Well, language is so important. Language is really key here, I think. And what's changed in the industry is language. That's what they've changed. They've changed their labeling, they've changed their marketing, they've changed the websites. Really, language and imagery is what they're changing. And I think that in reflection, we have to address and really analyze our language and change it too. And one of the things that I propose is that we stop saying factory farming. Why? Why on earth? Such a powerful term. It is. It is a powerful term, and it has done its job. It has been a rallying cry, really, for the last 40 years. And it truly has that power of evoking, all the horrors of the mechanical and industrial and horrible factory farming industry, right? That it's done its job. People see, they know something's wrong. It's how we've exposed what's happening on these farms. So it's been a really great, great saying. But guess what? Things are changing. Things are shifting. And now, because of our exposing the factory farms, the industry is shifting too. They're changing, and they're saying, oh, wait. But there are alternatives. There's small scale farming. There's organic farming. There's alternative farming. Don't worry, we're changing. We're here, we hear you, and we're changing. And now you're hearing people say things like, oh, well, my meat isn't factory farmed. I get it at Whole Foods. Oh, my eggs aren't factory farmed. I buy them at the farmer's market, right? So there is now when we say stop factory farming, it's not necessarily a vegan message. It used to be, because that was the only option, right? But now people are seeing that there are alternatives, different ways of farming. They think that it's better. So no, I don't support factory farming. I even saw a pork producer on their website say, we're against factory farming, buy our pork, right? So we have to be very careful with this. We have to be very careful with language. And I think we need to retire this saying altogether. And what can we say? What should we say? I think what we need to say is that all animal farming is factory farming, or all animal farming is bad. All animal agriculture is, causes suffering. All, and be sure that you include all animal farming. That is going to be key to kind of shifting this problem that we're having. And, I'm seeing it a lot. I don't want to get into that, but basically, also, another part of this, I know what I want to talk about. Another part of this is another meme or thing that we often say is 99% of meat, dairy, and eggs comes from factory farms. Okay, so this is this thing that has just been repeated and repeated and repeated so much, and we're not even thinking what we're saying anymore, right? Let's unpack this. What are we saying here? So do we really, when a vegan says this, do they really think that there is this 1% of farms where, these are some memes that I found just by, Googling the 99%, it's just everywhere, right? 99%. So such a meme we say, but so do we really believe that this 1%, right? Basically, we're saying that there's some 1% somewhere, right? That's okay, is what we're saying with this, right? Do we really believe that that 1% is all rainbows and butterflies and the animals are getting massaged? And what did Sina say? The mint on the pillow treatment. I love that. Chocolate mint on the pillow treatment. Yeah, no, of course not. We know that's not the case. We know that all animal farming is cruel. All animal farming is abusive. So when we say these things, we're basically saying it's okay to buy the humane. It's okay to buy the organic. We're endorsing the alternative, right? So let's be very careful with this. Okay, I'm going to move on because I can go off on that all day. And
hey, Hope, real quick, just FYI, it's 17 after.
Ah, okay. Wow. All right. Well, I'll try to wrap up quick. But I am the last one, so I'm going to go on, if that's okay with everybody, hopefully, because yeah, I've got a lot to say about this, everybody. I'll try to wrap it up. And I don't have too much more. But I will say, okay, and these are some language suggestions that I have. They're not necessarily Humane Hoax related, but I think it's important not to say faux or fake or analog when we're talking about meat. Find out what it is, the brand it is, or if it's a burger that's made out of beans, maybe say bean burger. Try to find another way to say it. Nobody wants to eat something that's fake, right? Plants are real. So yeah, let's not try not to say that. Meatless, eggless, non-dairy. How about meat-free, egg-free, dairy-free? I just like that so much more. Instead of, less and non, these are negatives. We don't want something that's lesser than, and freedom of choice, freedom for the animals. It has a more positive feel, I think, meat-free. Also, this one I've heard twice now recently, and so I just feel like it's kind of important to address. And oftentimes we hear people say, well, we want to change culture. We want to change people's culture. And I think we should be careful with this because, there are marginalized cultures and traditions that hear this and they're like, well, I don't want to change my culture or my religion or whatever. And that's not really what we're saying. We really just want to change people's habits, right? We don't want you to not have Passover. We don't want you to change your culture. We just want you to veganize Passover, right? Stop the bad habit. And nobody cares about everybody wants to give up bad habits, right? So I think that's much better language to say that we want to change habits instead of changing people's culture or tradition. So just kind of be careful with that. And then go vegan. I'm not saying don't say it. I think it's fine. It's been kind of our rallying cry for a very long time. But how about live vegan? Live vegan. I just love that so much more. I think it's more positive. The go vegan sounds a little like finger pointy to me. Go vegan, go vegan. I just like live vegan so much more. So, don't feel as strongly about that, but just my 2 cents on it. All right. Incorporate the Humane Hoax issue into your activism. However that is, whatever you're doing, incorporate it in. There's some great books. This is my book on the left there, The Ultimate Betrayal. Robert Grillo's Farm to Fable is another great book. There is literature specific to the humane hoax. This is my organization, Compassionate Living, over here on the left. And this is our leafleting card. It's our Humane Hoax leafleting card. So it's it's got two sides, but just one card that you can hand out to people. So if you're a leafleter, perhaps putting that in your booklet or handing that out so that this issue is addressed. Also, United Poultry Concerns has their free-range poultry and eggs. And there's lots more out there too that you can find specific to the humane hoax. If you create memes on social media, maybe think about this day, what sparked interest to you, what could you put into a meme? Cage-free doesn't mean cruelty-free. Regenerative grazing is the equivalent of clean coal. Here's another one that I really liked. A new survey finds consumers want to know that animals they eat are treated humanely, but are often confused by humane labels. Here's a helpful guide. Nothing humane ever happens inside a slaughterhouse. Good one. Whoever created that wasn't me. Somebody out there did a good job. Humanefacts.org. All right. So create and share. If you are a creator of videos, of podcasts, of magazine articles, of blogs, whatever you are, bring this issue into it. Bring the humane hoax into your creations. And if you don't create these things, but you share these things on social media or in your emails or whatever, find those things that are specific to the humane hoax. Emily has a ton of them on Bite Size Vegan. We have some on humanehoax.org, and just share. And I don't know if I have time to talk about that. So the last one, I say, target a local humane hoax entity with thoughtfulness and much preparation. And I have some thoughts about that, about if you want to do that. And I think I'll wait and leave it in for the Q&A. So if anyone's interested in doing that and you do want to hear what I have to say about that, then you can ask. But I'll move on right now. Okay, a couple more slides and I'm almost finished. One is I want to talk about my book projects. It is now, next year will be 10 years since I wrote the first book on this issue of the humane hoax, the book called The Ultimate Betrayal. I can't believe it's been 9 years. But what I'm going to do for the 10-year anniversary is that and we've mentioned it a couple times over the day, I am editing an anthology on the humane hoax. So a humane hoax anthology. I have 18 contributing authors and activists and academics, and Justin Van Cleek and Johnson Bamatsu are both contributing a chapter. And so that's going to be coming out through Lantern Press, Lantern Media and Press. I think it's Lantern Publishing and Media actually now. And they are going to be publishing it the 1st of next year. So coming out in the spring of next year, I believe, maybe sooner, we'll see. But I have another book project that I'm already starting that I have kind of a 3 to 5 year trajectory on. And what I want to do is I want to look at images out there in the world of the humane hoax and kind of really break down and analyze those images. If you're familiar with what Carol Adams did with the pornography of meat, it's going to be similar to that. So here's 3 examples. And the reason I'm giving you examples is that I need you for this project. I want you to be looking for, in your community, looking for examples of the humane hoax, labels that are just more egregious. Labels, we're going to see a lot of those, but things that are really egregious or really just, that give you that visceral, oh my God. So down here at the bottom, this is a restaurant, Happy Lamb Hot Pot. I'm sure those lambs are very happy to be in the hot pot. Then this one in the middle, Mindful Meats, this is on the side of a slaughterhouse. This is a slaughterhouse that gave themselves a fresh coat of paint and put Mindful Meats on the side of their slaughterhouse. And of course, at some co-op, we now carry humanely raised veal. You cannot get more cognitively dissonant than that. So look for these, please. Now that I've put it in your heads, hopefully you will see them. And please send me your high resolution pictures of humane hoax examples. All right. Oh, I also, gosh, I have so much. I also want to have testimonials. This is going to be a shorter duration. We're wanting to put these up on the website soon. So if you did fall for the humane hoax, if you bought humanely labeled products, write a testimonial for us. We're collecting testimonials for people that actually fell for the humane hoax, bought those products, but then realized and found out, that it was a hoax. So, and tell how you felt about that. So please send in testimonials. A quick plug for my podcast, Hope for the Animals podcast. I hope that if you are into podcasts, put it in your listening library and check it out. And I will wrap it up. Oh, one more thing. Oh my goodness. I did want to announce our upcoming chicken webinar, Humane Hoax Chicken Webinar. We will be doing another chicken webinar Saturday, May 21st. So mark your calendars, get on the Compassionate Living e-news, and we'll be sending out information about that. And I will wrap up with this quote: "It is not our methods of animal agricultural practices that need to change. It's our unwillingness to let go of animal products and animal farming." Thank you.